Hi everyone, my name is Alex. I'm a co-owner and roaster for Café Pista in Montreal, Quebec.
And I'm Thibaut. I'm the green buyer and I'm a QC manager for Pista.
So the coffee that you got from us in this season of Leaderboard, first of all, thanks for playing. Hope you had a great time. We had a really good time playing as well. I'm not sure how we did, but we'll see. The coffee we had for you was Pastor Ordonez. It's a coffee from Colombia, from the San Agustin region, and it is a washed coffee, more specifically a pink bourbon. And the altitude is 1,700 meters, so above 1,600, like the question asked in Leaderboard. And we roasted it on our beautiful Loring S15.
So to give you a little bit more insight on the coffee, it was produced by Pastor Ordonez on his farm of Las Chinas, just a few kilometers away from the city of San Agustin in the south of Huila. So Pastor Ordonez is a member of a collective, a producers collective named Moncaba that was created last year by one producer called Esneider Ortega Gomez. And the idea of that Moncaba collective is to get about 30 different producers from the same region together and to give them more power and to help them reach another market, the specialty market. Until then, all those producers were only selling their coffee to the local bodega on the local market for a price just above the sea market, so a ridiculous price for the quality of their coffee. But thanks to the collective, the Moncaba collective, now they can sell their coffee as micro lots directly to roaster in the US and in Canada. And that is thanks to Semila Coffee, an importer based in Montreal.
Yeah. So how we got, or how we would suggest to identify this coffee? I think the first thing we would do is to look at the coffee, so just to assess its physical aspect. When you look at the beans, they are textured, there are ridges on it, they're not perfect, which basically to us would point to a washed coffee. If you look at the center line or the ridge line, it's also very small, it's smaller, it's cleaner, which also usually is a characteristic of washed coffee if you compare it to a natural processed coffee. Another thing you can basically look at when you look at this coffee is that it's very homogeneous, meaning that all the beans are the same size almost, they look very similar, and that would basically show us that it's a single variety. So there is only pink bourbon in that lot, and it basically tells you, because when you look at the lot, they're all very similar, which is also a very good thing when you're roasting coffee, because it makes it easier to roast, and it gives you a very good result, and a lot easier also to get a nice roast profile.
Another way for us at least to identify the coffee would be just by tasting it, of course. In our opinion, maybe you can try it. In our opinion, this coffee has some very typical characteristic of southern Colombian coffee. For example, it has a very intense sweetness of fresh and candied fruit, some fruit like blackcurrant, some berries as well. It has a very vibrant and bright acidity, which again is very typical of southern Colombian coffee. But also it has some characteristics that are proper to the pink bourbon varietal. For example, or at least what we find is in this coffee would be a very refreshing citric and malic acidity, a bit like a sparkling lemonade or a green apple, for example. It has also some floral aroma, the nose, that are very typical of pink bourbon. And finally, we find some very interesting stone fruit flavors of apricot and nectarine that you don't usually find in other Southern Colombian coffee, but that again are typical of pink bourbon.
Awesome. It's delicious. I hope you liked it. Another thing that basically was asked also is to identify the type of roaster that it was roasted on. So we do roast on Loring. When we started roasting, we were at the Canadian Roasting Society roasting on a ProBat. So having roasted on both systems, either a drum roaster and an air roaster, it's for me, I mean, very hard to identify. I think it shows or it depends a lot on the type of roasting that you're doing, and also if you're roasting, what roast level you're roasting. If you're roasting very light or very dark, so it's very difficult when you have a proper roast, in my opinion, to identify which kind of roaster you are tasting. If the roast is well executed, you shouldn't be able to tell the difference between an air or a drum roaster. So even at one point we did a few tests going back to CRS and roasting a few batches on the ProBat, which we blindly put on our table against our Loring roasts, and we didn't really identify, I think, 2 out of 5 that we were able to tell, and they weren't really because they were roasted on a different machine. It's just that the roast was not as good on the ProBat because I hadn't roasted in a while on that machine. So for us, it's very difficult to identify the machine, and if it's well executed, it doesn't matter. Thanks for playing. I hope you enjoyed our coffee. We liked it very much, and we're super happy that we got to share it with all of you at Leaderboard.
Thank you.
Bye.